So now it's built. And again, it's kind of just following just straight through order. So they're really good about keeping the orders. I know we have the dinosaur, and that probably is going to want to use the tail. I can't recall. Maybe the giraffe has a tail. I think most everyone else is basically bipedal. You can say I have a horse here. I don't know why, but I'm going to go to biped MA. Oh, there's someone else doing a bird too. They're really far along actually. So, oh, and here's actually dragon. So you might want to just grab the dragon one. Um, Probably the horse for the giraffe. Play around with this. Remember, this is gonna be some. We're gonna have some time here to mess with these. Don't get too stressed out. I know some of you aren't feeling that done with everything, and that's okay. At this point, just move forward and try to get the rigging going and just start testing a little bit. So I'm going to click on import, and here it is. The way to get it into position to start with is to use this little circle, and I consider that to be kind of like the all control. You are in a fit skeleton scenario, so it's a little bit different, but just gonna scale this and just pick a basic size. Sorry, zooming all over the place. So we're just, let's not do it that way. Grab from the center, there we go. And usually what we're aiming for is the pelvis is kind of our guide usually for these types of things. So maybe around there. I can always move it though. So if I want, I can aim for the shoulders. In this case, it's not that big a deal. You'll see some people, and I was talking about this last class, that I ended up with an angle. I think you can see this, that this leg actually is at an angle, and you're supposed to technically have that straight. But since it's coming in at an angle, I'm going to try not to overthink it, and I'm going to leave it. And like I said, this is kind of a test version, so we'll see what ends up happening. The big thing that once you get it in is just, we can come back here. If I want to add a tail, I can add a tail. I was playing around with adding a hand because I have 2 arms on my character, but I'll show you how I manage that in a moment. So I don't really need this fit anymore. I can go back to edit now. There's this fit mode that you might want to consider using. And if you forget, it's okay. You can also manually update now. And fit mode is the rotation axis of a joint. I'm just going to click on fit mode. So when you have fit mode on, it just will auto rotate everything and make sure all the joints are pointed in the right direction. So you don't really have to think about it while you're going. So the basic setup is, remember we can select a joint. So like to me, the pelvis is too high. So is also the hip. But if I go and move this thing, it's going to move everything, and I don't really want to do that. So remember, if you tap the key D as in delta, then you can move these individually. And so I'm going to pull this pelvis down about, I'll put it kind of right there. And there are some better positions for these. I'm not going to get too into it, but I think that's about where I had the other one. And then I was talking about how you want to kind of picture how the leg the leg is actually kind of a diagonal bend a little bit. It does kind of bend at a horizontal, but also slightly diagonally as well. In other words, try to think of it going like that. The other thing is just try to keep it centered on the body. I wouldn't want to move this thing, so I just moved that straight down, which kept that orientation to the angle that's already there. Sorry, that was the wrong kind of move. I want that with D. Then moved it down. If I start doing this, I'm going to get that angle, and that's that kind of angle you want to avoid. Okay, so I would use just the regular move and pull it around like that. Don't overthink it. Just get it. I think the more important thing is the where it is this way on the legs. That's the main issue, up and down to me. Pelvis looks pretty good. I think, I think somewhere around in here, kind of belly button to, you don't want to be down here, don't want to be up there. think that's probably pretty good, right about at that belt. Let's take a look at the foot now. Also, I noticed that the whole character was a little bit forward, so I can grab the hip area. Actually, really feel like everything. I'm going to take the whole entire pelvis, just pull the whole thing back. And what we're aiming for is to try and get everything centered, as much centered as possible. Like every joint, you want it as centered in the character as possible. So with the foot, feels like the foot, the ankle, maybe I want a little bit more up here. So I'm just going to grab the foot and pull it up there. The heel actually looks like it's in a pretty good position. You want that thing to be where you're going to actually contact the floor. So that to me is the contact. It's a weird foot. It's not very defined. Same with the toe. You want to grab that toe and you want to get that toe into a position that we could even bring this back a little bit. Maybe get a little more foot bend on that. And then bring the toe forward. And again, you're kind of trying to pick that point where it actually rotates from. So when you peel off your toe, you're going to peel off this point. These other two positions right here, these are the these positions are like where you rotate on the inside and outside of your foot. So if I want to bring those out again, you're kind of picking where you'll rotate, so the point at which you contact the floor right there. It's pretty good. Remember, take a look at your knee. It's probably not going to be in the right spot. So remember, tap D so that you don't move everything. You're just going to move your knee. Just get your knee into position. Come back a little bit, maybe. Trying to keep things, keep that bend, but it's actually, move that back just a little bit. Just to keep that bend going. And that's the bottom, so that looks pretty good. So let's start looking at the top now. Click on the clavicle here and pull the whole shoulder back. And move it up. I'm going to grab the shoulder and move it down. Pull it in. It's better here. It looks pretty good, but I don't think, let's take a look at it from the top here. Kind of hard to see with the other hand there, but let's put about right there, centered on the wrist. So that's going to be the wrist joint. Grab that elbow again, tap D. Just come back about right there. I think that's the elbow. I might be wrong on that one, but I think that's the elbow. And now it's just the fingers, and this obviously is where this takes probably the longest time is the fingers, so bear with me here. I'm just gonna move them and not really talk so I go a little faster. Remember, you can rotate. So sometimes maybe just getting them into position is better. I don't have a really clearly defined knuckles either, which makes it a little more difficult. There's also really weird roundy fingers, like this hand didn't get very completed model-wise. Don't forget to rotate. You can totally do that. So aside from scale, well, I guess you could scale a joint as long as you make sure it's in the X. As long as you scale in the direction of the joint. I don't think it's a problem, but really there's no need if you can move and rotate. So I'm just gonna try and keep these equal. And centered. They're going to be off a little bit. From the front. We'll see that in a moment. You know, counting the times I've done this with the class, this is literally about maybe, well, there's my cat, literally about maybe the 5th or 6th time I've done this. What do you want? That's a good example. If you see that little wire, you see that thing changing, that's the fit mode when I move it. Do you see how it auto rotates? It's just maintaining the general rotation that the joints should make when they rotate. It's something we don't really worry about in our classes, but even when we were doing that Superman, technically should have been worrying about it, but I found that for our classes it doesn't really, you don't really need to. Just going to kind of try to keep that straight. Oh no. Oh. My cat just jumped on the computer. I hope he didn't do any. What? Oh, God, he hit like every button on the. Okay. All right. Hopefully that didn't cause any trouble. Okay. All right. Now cat in my lap. All right. So looking at it, you can see from perspective, you can see it's off. So we're going to go through now and take a look at it from the front view. Is a good view to start with. I find that it's a little bit better to leave the perspective open because it can be hard to check which finger is that. So I'm actually going to start on the pinky. You can see it's pretty low. So I'm just going to pull that up. And if you zoom in, you can almost see it. Let's close that so we get a little more space. There we go. You can see the edge of the pinky right there. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to just rotate it. Looks good. I'm going to grab the next finger. I'm going to move it up. And they're about, I didn't really make a cup to my hands, so they're almost smack dab right on each other. A little bit of rotation. Maybe drop that down just a little bit. Next one. A bit of rotation. No. Yeah, just stay there. Yeah. Okay, there we go. A little rotation on that. Now, thumb is a little bit trickier to see from the front. You kind of see it, that it's kind of hanging down. I mean, I can grab this one and pretty easily line that up, but I think it's going to be better from the side. So I'll just look at it from the side. We can do things like, remember, we can snap. So if we want to get this joint chain to be really straight, I can even, I can make sure I have the y-axis selected and just hold V and snap. Or maybe not. Did this earlier and it was fine, but let's not worry about that. I don't know why that's happening. There we go. I don't know why that first one didn't want to snap, but it's not necessary. I mean, I found that you don't have to really worry about it too much. It really works pretty well like that. So that's my hand. So now let's take a look at the body. So I found that you just really kind of want to try to keep these things a little bit even. That's sort of the main deal. So, I try to kind of, that's my idea. I could be wrong about that. We do want them centered in the body. So I'm going to just kind of pull that forward. Pull that one forward. This is the neck. Yeah, so I'm tap D, and I'm just going to get this into the neck area. So this is going to be the base of the neck, like that. That looks pretty good right there. This is going to be the head joint. So this is where the head rotates from. So you usually that's actually kind of up in the ear, but there's no real ear here. So you wouldn't want it right here necessarily. I'm going to place it about right there. That looks pretty good to me. I'll grab that head end and just kind of push it up to the head end. Now these here are the jaw. So usually the jaw goes to the back of the ear as well. So people tend to want to put this here, but it's actually starting here. You're rotating from back here maybe. And then this is the end of the jaws where it rotates from. So really it's the lower part of the lip moves. I'm just going to kind of split the difference and hit about here. You'll notice that it doesn't actually even connect. You have to do some fancy weight painting for the mouth where you have to paint this whole section to that joint. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. And then lastly, the eye, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit last time. The eye, let's go to the side view because the side view is a little bit easier to do this from. Just gonna aim. Oh God, no, he's falling off. Okay, hold on. All right, come on. Go on. Sorry about that. Cat's gone. Okay. So if I want to get that right onto the center of the eye, and I'm not going to be super careful. You'll see that if that's even just slightly off, it'll cause the eye to rotate a little bit awkwardly. So do want this perfect, but like I said, this is our first one, so getting it perfect, there's a lot of different ways. Some people do like some fancy locators and things like that. These eyes aren't actually pointed straight, so they're actually angled, which is maybe probably a bad idea in terms of laying it out. Oh my God, now the dog's here. So let's not worry about it too much. I mean, the idea is that you want this part of the eye to be as centered in the eye as possible, and then you want this front part here as centered in the eye as possible. So I'm just going to come out, and you can see that it's off. So you don't want to do something like this where you angle it. That's bad. Okay, we don't want that. We'll grab the back part of the eye and just pull it over. And really, when you look at the front view, because there's an angle, it's actually directly in the center like that, right? Between these 2 points. I'm going to guess there. I'm actually going to create an angle. I didn't do this on the last one, but I'm going to do it here. And then this is the tip. This is the very tip of it. And we'll say, okay, well, this is the tip right there. Honestly, that might come to bite me. In most tutorials, they'll say keep these totally straight with each other. So I probably should go back and update my eyes so it's pointing in the right direction. That's going to be close enough for me, though, for this particular project. Looks like I brought that head a little bit high. Now I can see. Let's drop that down. And that's the layout. That looks pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about it. The only thing left really is just to maybe try to get another arm for the character. So what I ended up doing is instead of creating a new joints using the add joints, I just ended up duplicating. I just said edit, duplicate. And it does give me an error. More than one object matches name shoulder. That's why. Because I duplicated it. I don't know if I can go in there and change that. It's right there. It says shoulder. Let's change it. Let's see what it says if I do lower, or just I'll do um, actually. Let's do that. I'll select this scapula 1 scapula. Okay, so we'll do try modify prefix hierarchy name. I didn't do this in my example, my test, so hopefully this doesn't totally mess things up. Actually, let's do quick save scene as. Just probably should have done that before. So I'm using ref 3 right now, so I'm just going to click on that and then grab ref 3. So you can see my naming convention now. It's going to get a little bit tough, but my naming convention is I'm using Skeleton5. That's what this one is. This means it's Skeleton5. I'm actually, the reference is number 3, and this version or iteration is 1. Okay, now let's try that. I'll do lower. Didn't change that name right there, but where it says shoulder right there, but it did change all the others. The joint names anyway. So hopefully that doesn't screw anything up, and we'll see. So just last little bits, just get that. So the cool thing is now those hands are kind of in position. I don't have to really rethink that. Let's pull that shoulder a little bit forward, right about there. Looks good, get it into position. I'm not going to worry too much about where the scapula is. I mean, I could play around with it with D. I'm assuming I'm going to want it to work similarly to the top. So I'm just going to kind of keep the same angle. It's attached where it was. I mean, I'm just getting kind of lucky here, you know. It just seemed to work out for me. Let's grab that hand now. I'm in D, so let's take D out. I'm going to come back to there a little bit. It's a little bit hard to get the angle on it, but I think the elbow actually looks like it's in a pretty good position, actually. I don't know if I need to move that. If I do, I will come back on it. It does feel a little short. Yeah, it is. So I'll tap D on that and just come. Honestly, I feel like that's probably the better angle. I think that's the elbow, but I'll just put it in the middle. It's kind of a bad place to bend, but oh, I know why. Because I did that. I did that modeling with mud boxes. What's going on? So now these are all in the wrong position. So just bear with me while I get them positioned and scaled. Well, not scaled, but just changed size. In perspective, so it's a little bit challenging to get this just right. I think if I do it from the top, let's just see. I guess it's doable. Remember to kind of work your way, not from the tips. If you don't work from the tips, if you work from the tips rather, it kind of messes you up because then you're always going back and forth. So pick the innermost joint and work with it first, and then work your way back out to the tip. I'm just trying to make kind of an even. Cool. Okay. So that looks pretty good. And I think what you'll find is that it'll actually rig fairly well once we do the other part. So I'm going to do one more save. Save scene as, this is 0, 1, we'll call it 0, 2. Say OK, continue, continue, all right, awesome. So I think that covers everything. So eyes are in place, the jaw's in place, the head, I got 2 arms. Obviously, if I was gonna make a tail,